people wherever they are in their spiritual journey to come to a safe place that is non-judgmental, non-indicting, non-critical, just loving and nurturing. And so we're happy that you're here today. And would you like to introduce yourself? We have a new visitor attending today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My mother and father have founded Rollins College in 1918, so I'm really not new.
Okay.
But I'm April the 14th, 1957, and my name is Diane Smith.
Thank you.
We're
Welcome.
from New York. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I just want to make sure I don't leave anybody out. I just wanted to remind myself and you that the month of Rajab will be arriving somewhere around March the 8th. And so begin to prepare yourself for the preparation time for the month of Ramadan. Because as you know, Allah has given us 60 days. The first 30 in the month of Rajab are for getting the weeds out of our soul. And the second 30 are for watering. And then the 30 days in the month of Ramadan are for reaping the harvest. And so I remind myself and you that what we put into the fasting, the conditions when they're right, is what we will get out of it. If we only are hungry and thirsty, then that's all we will get. But I do like to remind people, particularly the folks in the household that are responsible for getting food and all of that prepared and how you're going to handle things, start planning. Because if you fail to plan, your plan will fail. So start preparing your hearts for the month of Rajab because it's very, very important in our faith. The potluck is the first potluck of the year 2019 is the 26th of January at St. Luke's United Methodist Church in the attic. In the attic. Not literally the attic, but that's what it's called. So bring your favorite food and we will get together and have a halakha, inshallah, a study circle, as we always do. And as far as I know, that is the only announcements. So we will get started if nobody has an announcement that I don't know about. Alhamdulillah ta'ala, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh. ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our soul and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there is no deity, there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. O you who believe, revere Allah as He should be revered, and die not except as Muslims. Amma ba'd. So today is a name that is very broad and has many meanings, and so the name Al-Waliyy, which mostly is translated to mean the friend. If you are struggling and you're seeing Allah as this vindictive, mean God, how can you have a mean friend? How can you have a harsh friend? How many would you remain friends with someone who was harsh and mean and vindictive and always punitive? Who would want to have a friend like that? So I hope that this will be very exciting for you to really get in contact with this name, because it means a tremendous amount to me. And at the time of reflection today, we will talk a lot about what a friend means to you in terms of that. So here we go. Al-Waliyy means the protecting friend, the loving defender, the nearby guardian. And so here again, we see the loving defender, the guardian, all of these that are about caregiving, these ideas that are about one who cares for you. not one who's waiting to catch you out. And I'm still not finding that in any of my research. I find someone that is just and that if you do wrong there is punishment, but I find predominantly all of the references to Allah are very positive and very nurturing. The one who is lover, protector, and Lord, the one who is lovingly supportive, the one who is the protecting friend, the one who guards and rules all of creation, the one who lovingly guides mankind to turn toward the path of righteousness. And when I was thinking about the creation piece, I think it's really like a miracle that our earth is still producing the way that it is. Despite the global warming, I think as much as we have violated keeping the earth as Allah gave it to us, I think it's a miracle that we still don't have more problems. I think we will see them in the future unless we begin to be conscious about global warming. And it is, I think people are now beginning to realize that it is real. It's not just some projected ideology, it is real. From the root Waw, Lam, and Ya, which has the following classical Arabic connotations: to be near, close, nearby, to be a friend. So if I stop here, how can we ever feel alone when we know that Allah is our friend? Because He's closer to us, Allah is closer to us than our jugular vein. But sometimes humans find themselves in a position where they feel very alone. And when you do, if you call on Ya Al-Waliyy, Allah will remind you that Allah is your friend, inshallah. A woman who has never been married may not independently give herself in marriage, and her wali, which is typically her father, her grandfather, her uncle, and if it's a revert, it's usually the Islamic qadi, judge, or imam in the local precinct where that revert or convert is. But I want to say something to this because the wali is a very, very important role, and it should not be taken lightly. So a lot of people, they think it's like some ego trip to be called to be someone's wali. And what you're actually supposed to be doing, and you'll get the gist of it by looking at the name Al-Waliyy, you're actually supposed to be making sure that your daughter or your convert or whoever is marrying a guy that's safe and sound. And so you're supposed to check him out, you know. And I'll share with you that a couple of years ago, one of my students came to me, and her daughter had met someone, and so the family met him, and I said, well, make sure you do a background check. Just ask him for a check for $300 and do a background check. And she said, you're kidding, right? I said, no, I'm not kidding at all. This guy was a doctor, and he had a rap sheet like you wouldn't believe of fraudulent charges. And so, of course, the guy, despite giving her the check, never contacted them, and they never contacted him. So it is a responsibility that should be taken very seriously. The name is mentioned 13 times in the Quran, and we're not going to go through all 13, but if you want to take a picture of this slide, this is the slide that has the 13 places that it is mentioned in the Holy Quran. So we'll look at Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 257. Allah is the protecting friend of those who believe. So if you are thinking in a way that Allah is not protecting you, then your thinking is not in alignment and harmony with the Quran and the Sunnah. And if you're thinking opposite to that, then you want to correct your thinking. Because if you think that, what will you produce? What you're thinking. So it's very important for our thinking to be healthy. And I think Sister Naran sent out something very beautiful this week about being optimistic as a Muslim. A very powerful thing that she sent out. So Allah is the protecting friend of those who believe. And I think this is powerful here because it says those who believe. He is with those who believe. He bringeth them, and I usually always try to be gender equal here, so forgive me. Allah bringeth them out of darkness into light. As for those who disbelieve, their patrons are false deities. They bring them out of light into darkness. Such are rightful owners of the fire. They will abide therein. So we'll start some reflections from the great names of Allah by Al-Sayyid Rashad al-Musawi. And so Al-Waliyy says here, Salam alaikum, connotes closeness or nearness. Al-Waliyy may be an ally, a neighbor, a guardian, a relative. So I think as we process in the discussion period today, we're going to get a lot of definitions for friend. And certainly a lot of research is coming out on how the definition of friend has changed since the advent of social media. So Ali connotes closeness. Well, I might think that I'm close to somebody when I'm seeing them on this computer screen, but they actually may live in another country. And I've had the blessing of Skype counseling people in other countries, but we're not close in terms of proximity. They are in another country. A neighbor, a guardian, a relative. It also means that supporter, the beloved one. Allah is the guardian of those who believe. Yusuf A.S.L.A.M said in Surah Yusuf, verse 101, "You are my guardian in this life and the life hereafter." So, there again, we are never alone. We have the friend of Allah in this life, and we will have the friend of Allah in the next life. Inshallah. Al-Mawla is derived from the meanings conveyed by the above-mentioned verses. Quoting the believers, "You are our patron, so help us against the unbelieving people," and also, "Then are they sent back to Allah, their master, the true one." And Quran 47:11, that is because Allah is the protector, patron of those who believe, but those who reject Allah have no protector. And so, when you reject a friend, does the friend protect you? So it's pretty simple. That's something we're used to, that if I reject my friend, and of course in the recent, 2 years ago, people befriended people because they didn't agree with them politically.
Defriended.
What did I say, befriended? I meant defriended, yes. You're exactly right, thank you. What would I do without it? I don't want to know. Just as the above-mentioned verses testify to the fact that Allah is the guardian of servants, other verses have proven that a good servant of Allah is also a friend of Allah. Allah has said in Surah Yunus, verse 62, "Surely the friends of Allah." So, if I'm a friend of Allah, and we'll discuss this more in the discussion part, how does that manifest itself? How does it manifest it to you if I say I'm your friend? Now there's a number of viewpoints according to the scholars, and I'm going to share, I think, 3 of them with you regarding the interpretation of this friendship. One viewpoint suggests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who takes charge of all affairs, who undertakes everything, just as a guardian over an orphan takes care of everything that concerns the orphan. This word is derived from Mawla, one who is close to another, and the word conveys the meaning of someone charged with a specific responsibility. Applied to Allah Almighty, it connotes the superlative meaning of this word. So here again we see that it's very, very important. It's a superlative word, and we should really focus on this and look at how we can manifest, realize in our life being a friend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many of us actually think about being a friend to Allah, that we are actually Allah's friend? You know, I think it behooves us to think that I am Allah's friend. And then I will be, inshallah, faithful to Allah if I'm truly Allah's friend. If I say I'm Allah's friend with my lips, but I never am devoted to Allah, then my lips and my actions are not congruent. The second viewpoint says that the wali is a supporter of someone, as the following verse in Surah 9, verse 71. "As for believing men and women, they are guardians for one another." And so here again, we see a new dynamic, that we are actually supposed to be walis for each other. Guardians, friends, protectors. And how do we protect each other? And you know, when I read this, I really think about how we are supposed to conceal our brother's faults. and to cover the sins of other people. Of course, if they're leader, that's a different matter. We have to confront it so that the community is not misled. But generally speaking, if I'm your friend, I'm going to protect you. And I'm not going to rub in that which is painful to you. I'm not going to keep poking at that which is painful to you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to be a guardian for you. And understand that I think the greatest guardianship is when I walk in your shoes, or I try to walk in your shoes. Because then I really understand what you're going through. And sometimes it's very hard if people have been through things and you haven't been through, you really don't understand. A lot of times we say, I understand what you're going through, but just to simply be there for the person is a lot more valuable than telling them you understand when you don't. But really just guarding them. You know, like, I work with families that are going through divorce. I don't know what that's like. I know theory to help them, but I do not know what it's like. And if I were to say to someone that I understand, I know what you're going through, then it would be phony, wouldn't it? Because I really don't know firsthand. In all reality, the one who supports creation is none other than Allah, who says in Surah 41:31, we are your guardians in the life of this world and the life of the hereafter. That is, your supporters. The Al-Waliyy, plural of wali, of a ruler are his and her supporters. And so, here again, the culture of Islam Inc. is to be supportive, to be nurturing, to be non-condemning, non-critical, but to nurture. And I see in all of the names, and I think this is the 54th, may Allah forgive me, I think it's the 54th name that we've covered. If only we could adopt these attributes, we would be the greatest ummah on the universe. Simply knowing Allah and emulating these attributes, everybody would want to be our friend. This great name connotes the first and the second explanation of its root verb, except that the first meaning is more general because it deals with both the believers and the disbelievers, as well as other creation, whereas the second meaning is relevant only to the believers. And yet, what many people tell me is that they don't experience that when they go to many of the houses, the masajids of Allah, that they do not feel nurtured, they do not feel supported. They don't feel they're being guarded. And particularly, I used to think it was specific to reverts and converts, but I actually have learned that many people who were born into Islam go through the same thing, that they don't feel supported, they don't feel nurtured. And of course, I'm going to have to get on this soapbox. I struggle for my sisters, particularly here in America, who sit in a box behind a glass and don't make connection with the teacher. Because how can you be nurtured if you can't even ask your teacher a question? Except you have to send a piece of paper by a little kid to the teacher and hope that the teacher gets it, and then you're still detached. You're behind a glass wall. And there were no glass walls in the time of Rasulullah ﷺ. And so I just have to throw that out because I'm very disturbed, and I think, how will our young sisters ever feel empowered in a faith that separates them from the teacher? The third viewpoint is that the wali is the one who loves others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 257, Allah is the wali, guardian of those who believe. That is, the one who loves them. And so, sounds cliches, but we need to remember that. We need to remember that Allah does love us, and that He is closer to us than our jugular vein, that He is our guardian, that He is our protector, that He has provided everything for us. No human guardian can probably say that. The wealthiest people in the world sometimes fire their guardians, the guardians of their money, the guardians of their assets. Why? Because they aren't honest. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us everything we need as a guardian. Everything we need. The fourth viewpoint says that it conveys the meaning of the comrade or companion Allah being the wali of a servant means that Allah loves that servant. And so, again, when we get to the discussion part, hopefully we'll talk about what it means to be comrades. And we have tried so hard to promote that idea within Islam Inc. And people do tell us that they feel loved here. Wali in Arabic conveys the meaning of a master and a slave, a supporter, a neighbor, a cousin, an ally, and a guardian. And where else will you find the concept of master and slave and friend together? Only in Islam. And so we know that if you look at the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, one of the greatest blessings was to free a slave. And then there are beautiful ahadith where the slave and the master wore the same clothes. So the master wasn't wearing, Banana Republic, and the slave was wearing Walmart. So whatever the master wore, the servant wore. And I think this is so powerful. And we need to recognize, particularly so sadly, in the Muslim world, we have seen how many countries go to Saudi, for example, and if they are a person of color, they are paid about $50,000 less just because of that per annum. So you could take a Pakistani, an Indian doctor, they go to Saudi Arabia, they would be paid $50,000 less than an American doctor. This is all racism, it's all nationalism. We don't even guard our own people. And there are many, many countries that are highly populated by Muslims that we have this problem. That the poorer countries, those folks go there and they are literally slaves and they have no rights. Their children do not have rights to education in many cases. And yet we are supposed to be emulating this. And it is my prayer that none of us would ever even think that way, inshallah. The common denominator in the meaning of these connotations is nearness. Linguists have said that wali is one who is near to someone else both physically and figuratively. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah 75 verse 34, Awla leka fa'awla. Nearer to you is a distinction, and nearer by way of warning meaning. It has come close to you, and that against which I have warned you has almost reached you. Therefore be aware. Very powerful meaning in just a very short phrase. But if we remember that guardians are near us, it's sort of hard for me to guard your money if I don't have it close to me or have it in a safe or something that only I have the combination to, perhaps. So it must be near to me in some manner. This proves that the root word of this great name is derived from nearness, and this meaning is satisfied in the case of a slave, a supporter, a cousin, an ally, or a guardian. In all these cases, there are situations which necessitate nearness required for proximity and communication. If this is proven, Allah being Al-Waliyy of servants is indicative of Allah being near to them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah 57 verse 4, and Allah is with you wherever you are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, and we are nearer to him or her than his or her jugular. And I put in here life vein, because I think that really brings it home. In Surah 58 verse 7, nowhere is there a secret counsel between three persons except that Allah is there fourth. So, three of you may have a secret. You may think that what you're saying no one else knows. We're the holder of the secret. There's always a fourth party there, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so close to you that he is unfortunately subjected to even your gossip. People think that these verses point out an intensified sense of nearness. The nearness of Allah to servants is much greater than what all the superficial explanations of these verses may suggest. I mean, how much nearer can you be than your jugular vein, your life vein? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guarding that. Every moment that we're alive, Allah is guarding that. for a simple razor blade in about 1 second, and it's finished. These are only examples with which most people would agree. Their explanation is that the essence of possibilities cannot be described as existing except through the intervention of the Maker. Therefore, these possibilities are first linked to the Maker who permits them to exist. It is through such permission that their essence is possible. Their nearness to the Maker is surely greater than their proximity from existence. That's a very powerful slide. I know it's one that requires contemplation and pondering and reflection. But I think it hits you. I think when you read it, you see beyond what it just says in words.
I wanted to read it again. Hold on.
You can certainly take a picture of it if you'd like. So only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be able to describe this closeness. And He's described it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described it in the Quran in many different places, and you're going to see some more today, inshallah. I didn't cover all of the verses where this name exists, but I wanted to cover a lot of the verses that sort of address the subject matter, inshallah. Actually, in this case, it is even more so since we have proven that what is possible and what is factual is what can be described as such only due to the creation of their Maker, and their Maker bringing them into the world of reality. What is the world of reality? The world of reality for a Muslim is what Allah and His Messenger has said. Anything outside of that, we do not consider reality. Because as I often say to you, science changes. People will say the reality is that there are so many planets, and of course, as I've said before, this year they found a new planet and they called it far out. And I'm not kidding. And there'll probably be more planets found in the future. This is what scientists are saying. So when we were teaching that it's a fact, the facts are there are 9 planets, science was wrong. So the only thing that you can absolutely count on as a reality is if Allah said it. And you got to be careful, because if Allah said it, then you need to understand the Arabiya. You need to really be able to get to the source, because some of the translations certainly fall short of conveying the greater meaning. Actually, in this case, it is even more so since we have proven that what is possible and what is factual is what can be described as such only due to the creation of their Maker, and their Maker bringing them into the world of reality. The Creator making such things possible takes precedence over their very being, their very essence. Hence, their Creator is closer to them than they are to their own essence. And I think this is a powerful connection that when the Messenger of God said to know yourself is to know Allah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows you in and out. There's nothing about you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't know. What I discover in my life as a therapist is there's so much we don't know about ourselves. You know, people will tell you, they will vehemently tell you they're not upset, but their body language will tell you everything else different. They will, so many ways in life are what we think about ourselves, and if you think about certain relatives or people that you're really close to, they have an alter ego. And they think they're this, but it's very clear to those around them that they are that. The Creator making such things possible takes precedence over their very being, their very essence. Hence, their Creator is closer to them than they are to their own essence. And this is why it is so important, folks, that if you find yourself saying or listening to whispers, messages from the shaitan to you that are not correct, that you correct them. That you change that cognition, that you seek refuge with Allah, and you tell yourself, no, that's not what Allah said about me. Allah didn't say I'm ugly. Allah didn't say I am fat. Allah didn't say I am too skinny. Allah didn't say any of that. Allah said that you're the best of people evolved. So all of this worldly media and marketing is trying to teach you that what you are is not okay, so that they can sell you something that doesn't make you okay, that just takes away your money. So if you really know what Allah thinks about you, and the fact that you were chosen, the fact that your soul was specifically chosen for a purpose, you will have to change the way you think. You have to change your stinking thinking. This is the framework within the meaning of Al-Waliyy should be understood. The portion of blessings whereby a servant of Allah may be blessed due to the inspiration of His great name. Is it on his or her part he or she strives to be a true friend of Allah, and this cannot be achieved except after he or she has disassociated him or herself from anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by dedicating him or herself wholly to exposing him or herself to the light of truth, the reality. So, if I want to have this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to know that I am a friend of Allah, and that Allah is my friend, and I must devote myself to that friendship. And it's a good thing that I ask myself, and I would encourage you to ask yourself, how good of a friend am I to Allah? How devoted am I to Allah as a friend? How much do I protect Allah? How much do I defend Allah's truth? I may have the answer and a group of people are talking, and then I don't defend my friend. So let me challenge you. If somebody was talking about your best friend, who would you defend better? Your best friend on this earth, or the one that created you? It's just something to think about. It's something to ponder in terms of spiritual evolution. Believers are to adorn their conduct with the inspiration of this great name in worshiping His or her Lord, becoming as close to Allah as a friend. One who mentions this name must be a friend of Allah and of people, looking after them, managing their affairs, and so on. For Allah Almighty says in Surah Al-Tawbah, verse 71, as for believing men and women, they are guardians of one another. And so, Islam is so beautiful if we just practice it. Because we are guardians of each other. As husbands and wives, we are guardians specific to that spouse. We are garments to them. So it goes to another level. I'm what is the closest to you? Do we experience guardianship from the people that we love the most? And the reality is that based on this command of God, everyone that knows us should feel that they are guarded when they're with us. They should absolutely feel that when I'm with him or her, I feel that as if I have a protector. I am safe from their tongue and their hands. They will never ever hurt me. They will only encourage me. And I pray that our family, the Islamic family, gets to this station, achieves this station, that we just want to love. We just want to be guardians. We just want to protect each other. We want to make the road for each other easy, so that on this Sirat al-Mustaqim we have the space to grow, and the space that we know is safe. Because it's not safe when someone who God has commanded to be my protector is talking about me. Whoever aspires to be close to the Almighty as a friend will find Allah willing to be his or her friend too. And whoever turns away from Allah, Allah will turn away from them, and Satan will welcome him or her with open arms. Wali among the servants of Allah is one described by Imam Ghazali as one who loves Allah and Allah's friends, who supports Allah's friends, who is an enemy of Allah's enemy, and the latter includes his or her own self, nafs, and Satan, which I think is the most powerful piece of this slide. That when your nafs has something that Allah hates, you should hate that. Because the believer loves what Allah loves and hates what Allah hates. When my soul is not in the state of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should hate that. We should strive for our soul to be filled with a love for Allah and a love for our fellow believers. Even in the Quran, it says that we should be good to our neighbors who are near and far. Now, all of the scholars unanimously agree that this means Muslim and non-Muslim. And the messenger of God, may Allah have peace upon him and his family, he used to feed 40 people to the north, to the south, to the west, and east before he would retire at night. This was the love and the guardianship that he had for his fellow man. And then in our nafs are an enemy to Allah, because they will often call us away from what our ruh is calling us to do. My spirit tells me I need to pray. My nafs tells me no, I need to watch the NBA. That rhymes. And so if we can learn to hate when our nafs are not in obedience to the heart of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. Whoever defeats both of these enemies and lends his or her support to Allah and the friends of Allah, becoming an enemy to Allah's enemies, is a true wali. And so, I know without asking that everybody in this room would like to be a true wali, a true friend to Allah. And I have to take this deeper in that, are you a friend to yourself? Do you guard yourself? The Messenger of Allah said no one truly believes until they love for their brother. And what's the measuring stick? Put your love for yourself. We are supposed to love ourselves as Muslims. If you don't love yourself, how can you give love? If you do not possess love, how can you give it? If you ask me for coffee and I don't have any, I cannot give you coffee. If you ask me for peace and I don't have peace in my own heart, how can I give you peace? One of the indications of a friend of Allah, according to Al-Qushayri, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously makes him or her successful, even if he or she intends to do something wrong or goes to a prohibited place. This is the guardianship of Allah, that when your intentions are sound, when your intentions are to please your Lord, He has mercy on those who slack. He gives respite to those who slack off, when He knows that the intention is truly to love Allah and to be a wali of Allah. And yet we have the hardest time giving each other some slack. We have the hardest time giving respite to someone, forgiving. And what is in the heart of a person that can't forgive when we so desperately need forgiveness? So when someone has offended me, it's like an automatic. They're just automatically forgiven, because I am in such desperate need for Allah's forgiveness. And if I can't forgive someone on this earth, how can I expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always protect him or her against committing unlawful acts. If he or she tends to fall short in performing his or her acts of obedience to Allah, Allah will not facilitate that for him or her. Rather, it will turn into help and support for him or her by the will and favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Among other indications is that Allah will bless him or her by planting love for him or her in the hearts of Allah's friends, granting him or her an increase in Allah's favor and blessings. So when we are true walis to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He actually places love in the hearts of believers for us or for you. And my, how we need that. There is simply not enough love going around. I need big doses of love, big doses of guardianship, big doses of protection. I need spiritual antibiotics. So spiritual antibiotics comes by being a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Isfahani points out that Allah Almighty has rejected the possibility of any wali guardianship between the believers and the unbelievers in more than one verse. And I want to do a disclaimer. I want to make something very clear before I go into this subject matter. You must understand this in the concepts and the context of faithfulness to your Lord. If you can think of it in terms of infidelity, and as soon as I use that word, people that are married get exactly what I'm talking about. If you are unfaithful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are cutting off the spiritual hose. If you're cheating on Allah, and there are many ways to cheat on Allah, then you are cutting off the spiritual hose. In Surah 5, verse 54, O you who believe, do not take, and this should be the unbelievers. I can't believe I didn't catch this, because this is in the translation of the Noble Quran, and I don't like it for that reason. Do not take the Jews and Christians for friends and protectors. They are friends and protectors of one another, and whoever among you takes them for friends and protectors is surely one of them. Surely Allah does not guide the unjust people. So here, if someone is doing false deities, which we as Muslims believe to be the greatest sin, if they are making partners or associates with God, if they are giving power to a created being that was created by Allah, everything that it was made of was created by Allah, then we are not to make them. How can they protect you? How can they protect your soul? Remember, this is about the soul. How can they possibly protect your soul when they're inviting you to worship other than that which created you? Isn't that the ultimate protection that we want from each other? Is that you're helping me protect my soul? In Surah Tawbah, verse 23, O you believe, do not take your fathers and brothers as guardians if they love unbelief more than belief. And whoever among you takes them for guardians, these it is who are the unjust. These are verses that are taken way out of context in the world today. People use them to say that we hate. Does it say that we hate? No. But it says that we don't take them as our protectors. How is a person that's not a Muslim going to protect me and say we need to stop this car and pray? The prayer has come in. Has any of you ever had someone from another faith to tell you it's time to pray? Yes, I have. There's 3 of us, 4 of us in here that have. But it's not going to be the most common thing, is it? So how can they be your soul protectors? Typically, they're not going to be your best soul protectors. In Surah 7, verse 3, follow that. Follow what has been revealed to you from your Lord, and do not follow guardians besides Allah. How little do you mind? And one translation says, have you no sense? I like that translation. In Surah 60, verse 1, O you who believe, do not take my enemy and your enemy for friends. Would you offer them love while they deny what has come to you of the truth, driving the messenger of your own selves out because you believe in Allah, your Lord? If you go forth struggling hard in my path and seeking my pleasure, would you manifest love for them? And I know what you conceal and what you manifest. And whoever among you does this, he or she indeed has gone astray from the straight path. In Surah 5, verse 80, you will see many of them befriending those who disbelieve. Certainly evil is that which their souls have sent before them. So much so that Allah became displeased with them, and in chastisement shall they abide. And so in the example here, we know that the Prophet ﷺ fed everybody, not just Muslims. Didn't matter, and most of them would have been pagans in that time. The Messenger of Allah was feeding them before he went to bed at night. But for his protectors. And this is why, in the discussion, I think we'll see this, we cannot use the friend word so lightly. We can't have 1,017 people guarding us because we wouldn't be able to move. And many people believe they have today these many friends. Whatever Facebook tells you, that is your reality. That's not reality.
That's not reality.
Amen.
I do know that. Yes.
Allah has made between the unbelievers and the devil's friendship in the life of this world, saying, hypocritical men and women are all alike. They enjoy evil and forbid good, and withhold their hands. They have forsaken Allah, so Allah has forsaken them too. Surely the hypocrites are the transgressors. And I ask myself this question with great trepidation. Can I be your guardian if I'm a hypocrite? Just a pondering question.
No.
Surely they took evil ones for guardians besides Allah, and they think that they are followers of the right way. We have made the evil ones guardians of those who do not believe. Fight therefore the friends of Satan. Surely the strategy of Satan is weak. And the friends of Satan, there's a whole world of jinns out there at work, doing all kinds of things. And if we have our guardian intact, our guardianship of each other, we can protect others from that as well. But sometimes we don't even have our own guardianship intact. We aren't giving ourselves good self-care. And it's very sad because what do you hear people say very often? And I remember hearing kids of my own, and I'm 60, saying this when I was growing up, but today I hear it all the time. I don't care. I don't care. And I say, well, you know, you might want to care. You might want to care for yourself. You might want to love yourself. It will behoove you to care. Because if you aren't caring, then are you being a guardian? Because you're not caring, then you can't be a guardian to yourself. Satan's authority is only over those who befriend and obey Satan, and those who associate others with Allah. In the life hereafter, Allah has denied such friendship between both parties, saying, the day on which a friend shall not avail his friend aught, nor shall they be helped. As a matter of fact, on that day, when those people that you thought were your friends, and you say, well, they taught me how to do this thing which Allah did not like, they're going to testify against you and say, no, we did not do that. They did it of their own selves, their own nafs. Your hand is even going to look after itself. It's going to say, no, Allah, I did not do that thing. They commanded me. Their nafs commanded me to do this thing. And it will testify against you. So guard your soul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said in Surah 29 verse 25, you have only taken for yourselves idols besides Allah by way of friendship between you and this world's life. And on the day of resurrection, some of you shall deny others, and some of you shall curse others. Your abode is the fire, and you shall not have any helpers. So on that day when there's no shade, no one is going to help you but the one guardian. And if you were not a guardian to yourself and did not take care of yourself on that day, there will be no guardian for you. And I am talking about the soul. When I say the self, I'm not talking about the nafs. I'm not talking about your ego self. I'm talking about the spiritual self that's on this physical journey. We are spiritual beings on a physical journey. If we do not guard ourselves on the physical journey, we will not have a guard at that last day, well, the beginning of the spiritual journey. I don't like to say the last day because it's actually the beginning of eternal life on another dimension. The life has already started and it is eternal, but that's a new dimension that we can be in, where there will be no more worry. We can let our guards down. We will no longer have to guard ourselves in paradise. But the 70 years or whatever it is we're given on this life, we need to guard ourselves so that the guardian, Al-Waliyy, will be there for us on that day. Those against whom the sentence has become confirmed say, Lord, these are they whom we cause to err. We cause them to err as we ourselves erred. To you do we declare ourselves to be clear of them. They never worshipped us. And so we're going to move on to some reflections from an explanation of the divine names and attributes in just a minute. I want to say this before I do this. There are going to be some terms, and there's going to be some Sufi ideology in here, so I just want to tell you ahead of time. I think it has merit. I think it's very important for you to see this piece because it is a part of Islam, and I don't like to be divisive. When I find good fish, I don't care whether it's Salafi, Sufi, Hanafi, Maliki, it doesn't matter. I like to eat of that fish. So, here we go. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Most High says, and Allah is sufficient as a patron, a friend, and sufficient as a helper. And Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 257, Allah is the patron of those who have believed. He reiterates in all of these verses, and I meant to count them when I finished doing this lesson, and I did not get to it. But certainly, we can go back and do that. But he just reiterates, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reiterates over and over and over how He is our patron, He is our friend. And yet, how can we get mad? And we do, it's human. And last week we had a very powerful class about anger. And people talked about how sometimes I'm angry with Allah. But am I angry with Allah because I hadn't guarded myself properly? I hadn't guarded myself according to the conditions that Allah gave me to guard myself with? Or somebody else that says that they're a believer has not guarded me, and therefore instead of me being angry with them, I'm angry with Allah. Al-Waliyy means the helper or the one in charge of affairs and who executes them, or the one who fulfills the needs of the sincere. Some scholars have said that Al-Waliyy is derived from the word waliyya, which means standing firm within the dictates of knowledge and action. And here again, this is so powerful. If you do not have right knowledge, how can you stand firm? If your aqidah, if your understanding of Islam is flawed, how can you stand firmly? If you are taught that you don't have to learn the prayer in Arabic, and you're not taught the arkan, the pillars, the rukn, the actual standing pillars of the prayer, then how will your prayer ever be the prayer that demonstrates that you're a true friend of Allah? And this is why I beg people when they become Muslim, let me have the blessing to teach you how to pray, or let me connect you with someone that has that blessing. If you're ignorant, Allah is not going to hold you responsible. But as a friend of Allah, don't you want to pray the way that Allah would want you to pray? To demonstrate your love and your friendship to Allah. The scholars, therefore, is a wali of what he or she knows. And the wali of a child is the one tasked with treating him or her well. So even with knowledge, we are a guardian of knowledge. We protect it from being defiled. And as many of you have witnessed, if I find that I've taught something incorrectly, or I have said something that I didn't realize I said wrong, I come back and ask you to forgive me. Because we must guard knowledge, protect it from being defiled. We can look at many religions today, and their religions were defiled because they didn't protect their word. They did not protect the original state of what God gave them. So their religions have been flawed as a result of that. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guaranteed that He would protect and preserve the Quran. But have we protected it and preserved it within our own hearts? Is the question. The one who knows that Allah is the patron of the believers will never take anyone else besides Allah as a patron. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah 5, I think that's Al-Ma'idah, verse 56, and whoever takes Allah and Allah's messenger and the believers as patrons, then verily it is the party of Allah that are triumphant. There's a message here that if I want to be triumphant in my soul world, in my spiritual life, then I need to be with good believers. I need to be with people that will guard me, and I need to guard myself. One connects with this name by seeking Allah's help against one's ego and caprice, and against everything that comes between one and the presence of their master, so that one is guarded under Allah's watchful care, and Allah turns to you with Allah's divine safeguard and concern. So, this ego, this lower self, you cannot love that and have a successful friendship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just process that for a moment. If I so love this lower self, then it will guide me to that which does not please my friend. And I will betray my friend. I will even betray my own being in such a way that it will testify against me on the day of judgment. Very, very powerful, thought-provoking stuff if we really look into the depth of this and examine where are we with our friendship with Allah? Where are we with our friendship with ourselves? One connects with this name by seeking Allah's help against one's ego and caprice, and against everything that comes between one and the presence of their master, so that one is guarded under Allah's watchful care, and Allah turns to you with Allah's divine safeguard and concern. One cultivates this name in their character by fulfilling the conditions of purification, Waliyy, and this is sometimes referred to in Sufi readings as sainthood. I like to use the word elevated believers, because the word saint has some connotations that people really struggle with. So think of yourself as a purified believer. One who is striven to move from nafs amara to nafs lawwama to nafs mutmainna. And for those who don't know, that's the 3 stages of the soul that are mentioned in the Holy Quran. The nafs amara being the soul that isn't awake, the nafs lawwama being the soul that's conscious of sin, and when it becomes aware that it is sin, it repents and amends. And the nafs mutmainna is the soul that so practices truth that it's always at peace, because it's guarding itself and it's guarding Allah's commands, and therefore that person is at peace. They're a soul at rest. Oh, may Allah make us be among those people. One cultivates this name in their character by fulfilling the conditions of purification, Waliyy, thereby becoming a wali, a friend of Allah. The devoted believer is the one who turns to Allah in obedience to Allah and in knowledge of Allah, and so Allah turns to him or her in all of his or her states and does not leave him or her to be with other besides Allah. The conditions of devoted believers are 4: knowledge, spiritual state, spiritual ambition, and rectitude. If I am a friend of Allah, I will always be trying to rectify that which I do that is not pleasing to Allah. I will try to rectify that in my life which is not moving toward I.S.L.A.M, spiritual perfection. I will have, if I am truly a friend of Allah, I will not be void of spiritual ambition. I will have my spiritual goals. I will be aware that in order for me to be a number 10 in my salat, then I must pray 5 prayers a day, and I must pray them on time. Otherwise, I will never be a number 10 in that category, on a scale of 1 to 10. If I want to be a number 10 in my fasting, then I can't just be hungry and thirsty. I've got to know the conditions of a successful fast, and then I can move up. But in every single act of worship, if you were to grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, and make a goal on how you can get to 10, you will be consistently moving in a positive spiritual direction. And then you're had. And I can't reiterate this enough, but if we can only become aware of our had, our states. Sometimes it's very sad, but we're not even aware when we're in an excitatory state. So we get so angry that we forget what we say. Our passions cause us to forget balance. and think of whatever your passion is in life that comes from that other side. And think about the amount of energy that you put into fulfilling that passion. And then ask yourself, how much energy do I put into protecting my soul? How much energy do I put into guarding the Islamic family? Making sure that no one in this family is hurt. A sign that Allah has conferred sainthood upon a servant is that Allah makes enabling grace, tawfiq, his or her lasting lot. So much that were he or she to want evil or pursue what is forbidden, Allah would protect him or her from committing it. And were he or she to incline toward lassitude and obedience, Allah would insist that he or she be given enabling grace and divine assistance. That is one of the signs of eternal felicity, while its opposite is one of the signs of damnation. Very, very powerful. If you process this, that if I want to be an elevated believer, I want to have a goal. Some of us don't even have an aspiration to be nafs mutmainah. Some people will say to you, I just want to get to heaven. If I can just make it through. Well, that's really not the Islamic way. The idea is that I want to reach the highest heaven that I can possibly reach. I'd like to be on that level where I can sit with the prophets of God. It should never be in our thinking. Healthy thinking will never be that if I can just get through. How many of you would hire somebody if they came to you for an interview and said, you know, if I can just get through it. Just do the bare minimum. But just give me my paycheck at the end of the month, okay? Will you do that? Can I have the job? I don't think so. I don't think so. Did I finish this? Sometimes I get to pondering and reflecting and I'm talking at the same time. Another sign of one's spiritual evolution is that Allah places love for him or her in the hearts of Allah's friends, Al-Waliyy. For Allah Most High looks into the hearts of Allah's friends at every moment. And if Allah sees a servant in their hearts, Allah looks upon that servant with benevolence and kindness. And if Allah sees that a saint's spiritual focus is put upon a particular servant, or if Allah hears a saint's prayer for him or her, Allah insists that Allah will shower him or her with Allah's grace and excellence. This is the want of Allah. It's actually W-O-N-T. Yeah, this is the word I won't use. You can look it up if you like, but this is absolutely the word.
Okay. That's the new word I learned.
One realizes this name by becoming annihilated, destroying and eradicating their nafs, and then by becoming annihilated from one's own annihilation. It is then that sainthood will be actualized within one, and divine concern for you be complete. Allah is the possessor of immense bounty. And I encourage myself and you, annihilate your ego. Annihilate your passions that are from the lower self. That is why we stone at the Jamarat, at Hajj. We are stoning the shaitan in us. We're stoning the tempter. What is the symbolic meaning of the Jamarat? The shaitan came to 3 times and tempted him, Ibrahim. And he obeyed God. So we should be stoning every time they come. That thought, that desire to do something that doesn't please Allah, that betrays my friendship with Allah, I say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and I stone it. So if you can maybe perhaps get a visual of your nafs, and when something comes out of there that doesn't look like what comes from reality, stone it. Allahu Akbar. I will not have that. I love myself. I love Allah, and I will not manifest from that place. And from the 99 Names of God by Daniel Thomas Dyer, pondering about one's friends might give one a good idea about Al-Waliyy. The friends we enjoy spending time with, who are a joy to be with in good times and a comfort in difficult times, are one of the signs of the great friend. The best sign of the Al-Waliyy are the Al-Waliyy. The Al-Waliyy are the friends of Allah. They are especially close to Allah, the friend, and offer guidance and protection to the rest of humanity. All the prophets were Al-Waliyy, and so too are the sages and saints who follow their example. There are always Al-Waliyy alive in the world, but often they are hidden from public gaze. So, if you are striving to move in this direction, you will probably never have a large group of people following you. And that's a blessing. Because one of the hardest things for a leader is when people praise him or her for their egos to kill them, to absolutely annihilate them and destroy their soul. And this is why I have always said it is not about quantity for me, it is about quality. I would much rather touch the souls of a few people than to have the risk of being popular. And it may benefit us to process that, to think about that. I've never wanted to be popular. I've never wanted to be so-called big. I've had opportunities. I have really no desire. I'm afraid of that. I'm not willing to risk because I know I'm weak. I would not be willing to risk it because I'm afraid I would lose my soul. Al-Waliyy means the friend. Allah is our friend. And when we learn to return Allah's friendship, it will bring us and Allah great joy. Don't we want to bring our friend joy? Don't you do special things for your friend to make them happy? If you know that your friend loves tiramisu and they're coming over, you make one, obviously, without alcohol. If you know that your friend loves baba ganoush and they're coming over, what do? You make baba ganoush. If you love your family, you make sliders, like our sister Fawzi, and you bring it to the whole family. And you make oatmeal cookies like Maysoon makes. Every week, Maysoon loves the family and she brings almost every week something fresh. And she's guarding your tummy so that it won't make loud noises during the class. Allah never gives up on us. The friend is always waiting for us to show our love and come a little closer. The great Muslim teacher Ibn Abd, and I put his dates here so you get a reference of time, of Rwanda, wrote about the great blessings that come from keeping Allah as our close friend in all states. Allah is, after all, aware of us in all circumstances. No earthly friend can be aware of you in all circumstances. Think about it. For those of us who might have lost a parent, we got that information from someone else that was not a friend. And somehow through the grapevine, our best friend hears about it, and they come running to our home and say, "Oh my God, I heard the news." I encourage myself and you to ponder deeply upon this attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can change your life. This one attribute, the true knowledge of this attribute, can change your life and has the capacity to change the ummah that we live in. If the ummah simply materialized and manifested this one attribute, everybody would want to be a Muslim. They would just be standing in line to get in. And no matter what state you're in, Allah doesn't leave you. No matter what state you're in. When you are in the biggest rage you've ever been in your life, Allah is still there. And when you're at the lowest state of despair that you've ever been, when you hate yourself, Allah is still there. But that friend that you thought was your friend, when you voted for someone that your friend didn't want to vote for, they weren't there anymore. One of the beauties of friendships is being able to talk with our friends and share intimate details of our lives. How might we begin a conversation with a friend such as Allah? And how might such a friend who is invisible yet everywhere communicate with us? And I do have to ask this question. Most people who have a very dear friend, and the dearest of friends, inshallah, is your spouse. If you have a marriage that's watered and sustained and maintained according to the dictates of Allah, you will find the greatest rest and repose and tranquility with your garment. And you will miss them. You will see them in your dreams. You so love them. Suppose you have a question for Allah. Allah's answer might appear as an inspiration you have or in an event happening in your life. But are you alert and ready to notice such answers? See, sometimes when Allah gives us an answer, instead of us saying there's a reason for this, this is a gift from Allah. This is a bala, a test. And instead of saying, Ya Allah, help me to pass this test and prove my friendship to you, we become angry and resentful. Yunus Imri, a Muslim, wrote the following: love is my sect and religion. When my eyes saw the face of the friend, all sorrows became joys. Here, my King, I'll give myself to you. From beginning to end, all my treasures and riches is you. And so now we will have our discussion. I'll turn this handy-dandy microphone off.